Continuing Camillus from Plutarch's Lives, translated by John Dryden, revised by Arthur Hugh Clough. And thus for a great while he secretly enjoyed Arun's wife, corrupted her, and himself corrupted by her. But when they were both so far gone in their passion that they could neither refrain their lust nor conceal it, the young man seized the woman and openly sought to carry her away. The husband, going to law, and finding himself overpowered by the interest and money of his opponent, left his country, and hearing of the state of the Gauls, went to them, and was the conductor of their expedition into Italy. At their first coming, they at once possessed themselves of all that country which anciently the Tuscans inhabited, reaching from the Alps to both the seas, as the names themselves testify, for the north or Adriatic Sea is named from the Tuscan city Adria, and that to the south the Tuscan Sea simply. The whole country is rich in fruit trees, has excellent pasture, and is well watered with rivers. It had 18 large and beautiful cities, well provided with all the means for industry and wealth, and all the enjoyments and pleasures of life. The Gauls cast out the Tuscans and seated themselves in them, but this was long before. The Gauls at this time were besieging Clusium, a Tuscan city. The Clusians sent to the Romans for succor, desiring them to interpose with the barbarians by letters and ambassadors. There were sent there 3 of the family of Fabii, persons of high rank and distinction in the city. The Gauls received them courteously from respect to the name of Rome, and, giving over the assault which was then marking upon the walls, came to the conference with them. When the ambassadors, asking what injury they had received of the Clusians, that they thus invaded their city, Brennus, king of the Gauls, laughed and made answer, "The Clusians do us injury in that, being able only to till a small parcel of ground, they must needs possess a great territory, and will not yield any part to us who are strangers, many in number and poor. In the same nature, O Romans, formerly the Albans, Fidenates, and Ardates, and now lately the Vientines and the Capenates, and many of the Faliscans and Volscians did you injury, upon whom ye make war if they do not yield you part of what they possess, make slaves of them, waste and spoil their country, and ruin the cities. Neither in so doing are cruel or unjust, but follow that most ancient of all laws, which gives the possessions of the feeble to the strong, which begin with God and ends in the beasts, since all these by nature seek the stronger to have advantage over the weaker." Now, I would not say that it's quite as simple as that, and I wouldn't justify wars of mere conquest of, resources, be that land or more portable things or slaves. Cease, therefore, to pity the Clusians, whom we besiege, lest ye teach the Gauls to be kind and compassionate to those that are oppressed by you. By this answer, the Romans, perceiving that Brennus was not to be treated with, went into Clusium, and encouraged and stirred up the inhabitants to make a sally with them upon the barbarians, which they did either to try their strength or to show their own. The sally being made, and the fight growing hot about the walls, one of the Fabii, Quintus Ambustus, being well mounted, and setting spurs to his horse, made full against a Gaul, a man of huge bulk and stature, whom he saw riding out at a distance from the rest. At the first he was not recognized, through the quickness of the conflict and the glittering of his armor that preceded any view of him. But when he had overthrown the Gaul and was going to gather the spoils, Brennus knew him, and invoking the entities to be witness that, contrary to the known and common law of nations, which is holily observed by all mankind, he who had come as an ambassador had now engaged in hostility against him. He drew off his men, and bidding Clusium farewell, led his army directly to Rome, but not wishing that it should look as if they took advantage of that injury, and were ready to embrace any occasion of quarrel, he sent a herald to demand the man and punishment, and in the meantime marched leisurely on. The Senate being met at Rome, among many others that spoke against the Fabii, the priests called Facials were the most dedicated, who on the religious ground urged the Senate that they should lay the whole guilt and penalty of the fact upon him that committed it, and so exonerate the rest. These Facials, Numa Pompilius, the mildest and justest of kings, constituted guardians of peace, and judges and determiners of all causes by which war may be justifiably made, the Senate referring the whole matter to the people, and the priests there, as well as in the Senate, pleading against Fabius. The multitude, however, so little regarded their authority that in scorn and contempt of it they chose Fabius and the rest of his brothers military tribunes. The Gauls, on hearing this, in great rage threw aside every delay and hastened on with all the speed they could make. The places through which they marched, terrified with their numbers and the splendor of their preparations for war, and in alarm at their violence and fierceness, began to give up their territories as already lost, with little doubt but their cities would quickly follow. Contrary, however, to expectations, they did no injury. As they passed, nor took anything from the fields, and as they went by any city, cried out that they were going to Rome, that the Romans only were their enemies, and that they took all others for their friends, whilst the barbarians were thus hastening with all speed. The military tribunes brought the Romans into the field to be ready to engage them, being not inferior to the Gauls in number, for they were no less than 40,000 foot. But most of them were raw soldiers, and such as had never handled a weapon before. Besides, they had wholly neglected all religious usages, had not obtained favorable sacrifices, nor made inquiries of the prophets, natural in danger and before battle. No less did the multitude of the commanders distract and confound the proceedings. Frequently before, upon less occasions, they had chosen a single leader with the title of dictator, being sensible of what great importance it is in critical times to have the soldiers united under one general, with the entire and absolute control placed in his hands, and to all the remembrance of Camillus's treatment, which made it now seem a dangerous thing for officers to command without humoring their soldiers. And in this condition they left the city and encamped by the river Allia, about 10 miles from Rome, and not far from the place where it falls into the Tiber. And here the Gauls came upon them, and after a disgraceful resistance, devoid of order and discipline, they were miserably defeated. The left wing was immediately driven into the river, and there destroyed. The right had less damage by declining the shock, and from the low grounds getting to the tops of the hills, from whence most of them afterwards dropped into the city. The rest, as many as escaped, the enemy being weary of the slaughter, stole by night into Veii, giving up Rome and all that was in it for lost. This battle was fought about the summer solstice, the moon being at full, the very same day in which the sad disaster of the Fabii had happened, when 300 of that name were at one time cut off by the Tuscans. But from this second loss and defeat, the day got the name of Alliances, rumbly the tumbly, from the river Allia, and still retains it. The question of unlucky days, whether we should consider any to be so, and whether Heraclitus did well in upbraiding Hesiod for distinguishing them into fortunate and unfortunate, is ignorant that the nature of every day is the same, I have examined in another place, but on occasion of the present subject, I think it will not be amiss to annex a few examples relating to this matter. On the 5th of their month, Hippodarmias, which corresponds to the Athenian Hecatombaan, the Boeotians gained 2 signal victories, the one at Lucreta, the other at Caressus, about 300 years before, when they overcame Latamius and the Thessalians, both which asserted the liberty of Greece again on the 6th of Boedramion. The Persians were worsted by the Greeks at Marathon on the 3rd, at Plataea, as also at Machael on the 25th at Arbela. The Athenians about the full moon in Boedramion gained their sea victory at Naxos under the conduct of Cabrias. On the 20th at Salamis. As we have shown in our treatise on days, Thargelion was a very unfortunate month to the barbarians, for in it Alexander overcame Darius's generals on the Granicus, and